Rick Harrison's life goes beyond that of a mere pawn shop owner. It reflects the journey of a man who endured profound personal tragedies, confronted legal hurdles, and triumphed over setbacks, all while managing one of the most well-known businesses featured on television. Since its debut in 2009, Pawn Stars has captivated millions by providing insight into the intriguing realm of rare artifacts and intense deal-making. However, the story unfolding behind the scenes is one marked by emotional turmoil, legal conflicts, and obstacles that most viewers never witness. Rick Harrison's life story is not just about establishing a successful pawn enterprise, it is a testament to his persistence in the face of overwhelming adversity. From a rocky childhood to internal family disputes, health issues, and personal loss, Rick's narrative is anything but ordinary. Born on March 22, 1965, Rick Harrison, widely recognized from Pawn Stars, was exposed to difficulties early in life. Growing up in a military household, his father, Richard Benjamin Harrison, served in the U.S. Navy. When Rick was just 2 years old, the family relocated to San Diego. Yet his early years were marked by tragedy. Rick experienced a profound loss when his older sister, Sherry, died at only 6 years old from complications related to Down syndrome. This heartbreaking event left a lasting impression on him and helped shape his worldview. At a young age, he came to understand that life could be incredibly harsh, but also that resilience and moving forward were essential. When he was 8, Rick's health deteriorated significantly. He began suffering from epileptic seizures, which confined him to bed for extended periods. To pass the time, he immersed himself in reading, where he developed a deep interest in history and physics. One series he particularly enjoyed was The Great Brain, which centered on a clever young trickster, an oddly fitting parallel to the life Rick would later lead in the world of deals and bartering. Even amid these challenges, Rick's resolve to rise above and achieve success only grew stronger. This was just the beginning of his journey, and the road ahead would present tests far more difficult than he could yet imagine. Rick Harrison's foray into the pawn business didn't stem from privilege. Rather, it was driven by an unyielding ambition to thrive, despite the odds being against him. In 1981, after the collapse of the family's real estate venture, they relocated to Las Vegas. At the young age of 16, Rick was met with another life-altering challenge. His girlfriend Kim became pregnant. Faced with an overwhelming situation, Rick accepted the responsibilities of fatherhood, only to experience another devastating loss when their first child was lost to miscarriage. Though the grief was intense, it didn't crush him. Instead, it ignited a deeper resolve to carve out a future. Amidst his personal difficulties, Rick identified a business opportunity. That same year, his father opened a modest second-hand coin store on Las Vegas Boulevard South. It wasn't until 1989, however, that Rick and his father managed to secure a pawn license. This was no easy task, as city regulations in Las Vegas limited the number of pawn licenses based on population. The Harrisons had to patiently wait for the city's population to reach 250,000 before becoming eligible. After years of persistence, they finally acquired the license, marking the birth of the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop. Initially, the business centered on selling rare historical artifacts and memorabilia. Over time, however, jewelry sales began to dominate. Rick's deep knowledge of history and his skill in offering background stories for each item became a significant draw. This combination of historical passion and sharp negotiation instincts laid the groundwork for what would become a flourishing business. Yet, those early days were anything but easy. Rick juggled night shifts repossessing vehicles while managing the shop during daylight hours. Despite the hardship, the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop expanded steadily, and Rick earned a reputation as a savvy entrepreneur. The store gained recognition for its eclectic mix of historical items and notable sports memorabilia, including the iconic 2001 Super Bowl ring once owned by football player Brock Williams. Rick Harrison's unwavering commitment to his pawn business not only led him to become a successful businessman, it also launched him into the world of television stardom. In 2008, two producers, Brent Montgomery and Colby Gaines, made a trip to Las Vegas to explore the pawn shop scene. They were drawn in by the eccentric and colorful characters they encountered, but what truly captured their interest was Rick Harrison himself and the family-run Gold and Silver Pawn Shop. What they recognized was a rare blend: strong family interactions combined with the captivating stories behind valuable historical objects. By that time, Rick had already appeared in a PBS documentary back in 2001 and had a guest spot on the show Insomniac with Dave Attell in 2003. However, what he truly dreamed of was having a TV series centered around his shop. The concept was originally pitched to HBO under the title Pawning History, but it was eventually rebranded as Pawn Stars, a clever play on the phrase porn stars, designed to fit the more family-friendly image the producers were aiming for. The series premiered in July 2009 on the History Channel, and it resonated with audiences immediately. What distinguished Pawn Stars from other reality programs was its unique combination of educational content, engaging stories, and business negotiations. Each episode delved into the intriguing histories of the items brought in, while also highlighting the interpersonal dynamics between Rick, his father, and other familiar faces like his son Corey and close friend Chumlee. Rick's rise to fame through the show marked a pivotal shift in his life, but it wasn't a smooth path. Despite the fame, he still had to manage personal hardships, legal entanglements, and the relentless demands that accompanied celebrity. Yet none of these obstacles derailed him. Rick welcomed his newfound public role, and Pawn Stars soon evolved into a cornerstone of the reality TV genre. Despite all the success and recognition brought by Pawn Stars, Rick Harrison's personal life was riddled with difficulties that remained mostly out of the public eye. Away from the spotlight, he faced a series of emotional challenges, ranging from marriages and divorces to the profound grief following the death of his father, each of which deeply affected him. Rick's first marriage was to Kim, his teenage love. Their relationship endured a heartbreaking beginning with the miscarriage of their first child. Still, they moved forward, welcoming their first son, Corey, in 1983, followed by their second son, Adam, in 1985. However, their marriage didn't last much longer. After Adam's birth, Rick and Kim divorced. Within just 9 months, Rick married again, this time to Tracy in 1986. Together, they raised Corey and Adam, forming a blended family. But personal challenges continued. Rick's journey included multiple divorces, yet he never lost sight of his responsibilities as a father or his dedication to expanding his business. In 2011, after the end of his second marriage, Rick publicly announced his engagement to Deanna Burdett, who would become his third wife. This marriage added 3 stepdaughters to Rick's life: Serena, Kiana, and Marissa. Through all the ups and downs in his relationships, Rick's dedication to both his family and his business remained steady. Then in 2018 he suffered a heartbreaking loss: the death of his father, Richard "the Old Man" Harrison. Richard had been battling Parkinson's disease, and his passing left Rick mourning, while also carrying the weight of stepping up to lead the family business during an emotionally turbulent time. As if the emotional toll wasn't enough, Rick's business was soon challenged by the COVID-19 pandemic. Like countless others, the pawn shop initially saw a rush of activity as people needed fast cash in uncertain times. But that early surge didn't last. The pandemic forced the shop to partially close for a month, and even after reopening, operations were far from normal. Business declined significantly. Facing financial uncertainty, Rick still maintained his optimism, determined to keep the shop running and the legacy alive. These personal and business struggles, losing loved ones, navigating the pandemic's economic impact, revealed the complexity and pain behind Rick Harrison's public image. Behind the fame of Pawn Stars, there existed a man continually grappling with grief, family dynamics, and the burden of managing a high-profile family-run enterprise. In 2022, Rick Harrison found himself at the center of a deeply personal and public legal battle, one that shocked fans who had long admired the close-knit family dynamic portrayed on Pawn Stars. The dispute began when Rick's mother filed a lawsuit against him, accusing him of improperly taking control of her 51% ownership stake in the family's pawn business. According to court documents, Joanne Harrison claimed that Rick pressured her into signing over majority ownership of the gold and silver pawn shop while she was still recovering from a coma in the early 2000s. She alleged that she was unaware of the full implications of the paperwork she had been asked to sign. The lawsuit painted Rick in a troubling light, suggesting he had taken advantage of his mother's vulnerable state to gain control of the business. The case unveiled a rift between mother and son that stunned longtime viewers of Pawn Stars, who were used to seeing the Harrisons as a tight, unified family. Joanne further claimed that Rick had withheld critical financial information about her late husband's share in the business. She alleged that over $500,000 in cash and silver had mysteriously gone missing, raising questions about the financial transparency of the pawn shop's operations. As tensions escalated, Joanne also sought a restraining order against Rick. Her goal was to stop him from liquidating any family assets or reducing her share in the business. The restraining order was part of a broader legal strategy to protect her interests while the courts sorted out the dispute. Rick, on the other hand, vehemently denied all allegations. In interviews and public statements, he insisted that his mother was being misled and manipulated by outside influences. He asserted that he had made several attempts to reach out to her, but those efforts had gone unanswered. From his perspective, the accusations were baseless and rooted in misinformation. This high-profile legal fight not only fractured family bonds but also exposed the complications of blending business with family life. The fallout was widely covered in the media, casting a shadow over Rick's public image and placing additional strain on his personal relationships. What had once seemed like a well-oiled family operation now appeared riddled with distrust and resentment. Despite the emotional toll and the media frenzy, Rick tried to maintain a sense of stability. He continued to run the gold and silver pawn shop and make appearances in the public eye. Yet the damage was clear. The legal feud drove a wedge between family members and served as a sobering example of how money, legacy, and unresolved tensions can tear even the most seemingly united families apart. The entire ordeal revealed how thin the line can be between personal loyalty and business responsibility. For Rick, it wasn't just about defending his reputation or holding on to control of the shop. It was about confronting a deep and painful betrayal that had been years in the making. Rick Harrison's life, already marked by deep personal and professional challenges, took its most heartbreaking turn in January 2024 when he experienced the unimaginable, the death of his son Adam. At just 39 years old, Adam passed away from an overdose involving fentanyl and methamphetamine, a loss that sent shockwaves through the Harrison family and left Rick to grapple with a level of grief few can comprehend. Unlike his brother Corey, Adam never played a prominent role on Pawn Stars. He intentionally stayed out of the spotlight, choosing a quieter life and forging his own path outside the glare of reality television. Though he worked briefly at the gold and silver pawn shop, Adam eventually decided to pursue a different career and found his place as a plumber. Still, despite his absence from the show, Adam remained an important and beloved part of Rick's life. Rick made his sorrow public with a heartfelt Instagram tribute. He posted a photo of himself and Adam sitting together at a restaurant, accompanied by the simple yet powerful message, "You'll always be in my heart. I love you, Adam." The post struck a chord with fans and followers, sparking an outpouring of condolences and support from all corners, including from public figures like Donald Trump Jr. The collective response underscored just how many people had been touched by Rick's story over the years. Adam's tragic passing did more than break hearts. It also cast a harsh light on the growing opioid crisis in the United States. Rick, devastated by the loss of his son, began using his platform to raise awareness about the dangers of fentanyl and the urgent need for stronger action. In emotional public statements, he expressed his anguish and frustration over the epidemic, emphasizing that the problem was far more widespread than most people realized and demanding meaningful solutions to save lives. While nothing could ease the pain of losing Adam, Rick's response demonstrated remarkable strength. Rather than retreating entirely into grief, he stayed present for his family, especially his grandchildren, and continued moving forward with his life and work. His resilience in the face of such devastation was striking, reflecting a deep inner strength forged through years of adversity. Despite having already endured the loss of his father, public legal turmoil, and the emotional toll of decades in the spotlight, this tragedy was unlike anything Rick had faced before. And yet, he did not allow it to destroy him. He remained committed to his loved ones, to honoring Adam's memory, and to pushing ahead in his professional life. Adam's death served as a painful reminder of the hidden struggles many families face and the life-altering consequences of addiction. But through this immense sorrow, Rick showed once again that while the wounds of loss may never fully heal, the human spirit can still find a way to endure. Rick Harrison's path through life, marked by victories and heartaches, is a powerful story of endurance, sorrow, and accomplishment. From a difficult upbringing to building a successful pawn business and achieving television fame, his experiences speak to the strength of the human spirit. Despite enduring devastating personal losses, legal disputes, and the emotional weight of family strife, Rick managed to craft a legacy that stretches far beyond the bounds of Pawn Stars. The passing of his father, Richard "the Old Man" Harrison, was a significant emotional blow, one that deeply affected Rick as he took on the responsibility of leading both the family and the business during a time of mourning. The lawsuit brought against him by his mother in 2022 added another heavy burden. Her accusations of manipulation and financial wrongdoing threatened to tarnish the family image that Pawn Stars fans had grown to love. And in 2024, the sudden death of his son Adam from a drug overdose dealt Rick yet another crushing loss. Even as the world watched his life unfold on screen, many of Rick's deepest struggles took place away from the camera's lens. Yet, through every challenge, his commitment to his family, his business, and his loyal viewers never wavered. He has consistently demonstrated an unwavering focus, balancing public fame with private grief and continuing to persevere in the face of overwhelming adversity. Rick's positivity, even during his darkest hours, earned him the admiration of millions. People who had followed his journey since the early days of Pawn Stars found inspiration in his ability to face life's hardest moments with grace and tenacity. His resilience became not only a defining part of his personal identity but also a central theme in his public image. Today, Rick enjoys a semi-retired lifestyle. He spends more quality time with his grandchildren and still appears on Pawn Stars Do America, continuing to share his love for history, negotiation, and storytelling. While he has weathered more than his fair share of pain and hardship, Rick's journey is far from finished. He remains a living example of how strength, persistence, and devotion can carry someone through the most harrowing of trials. As Rick's story illustrates, life is rarely predictable or easy. But with family by your side, a strong work ethic, and the determination to keep going, it is possible to rise above even the most difficult challenges. His life stands as a powerful testament to the idea that resilience doesn't just lead to survival, it can lead to greatness.